Good afternoon, everybody. This is another episode of the Quadruple podcast, and I am your host, Tim Sullivan, and it is August 8th, 2019, and NFL football is unofficially back. We have 11 preseason games tonight, beginning with my Green Bay Packers taking on the Houston Texans as the de facto primetime game, if you want to put it that way. I mean, it's week one of the preseason, so we won't really get into that as far as games that are competing to be the most watched or have the highest ratings. But the bottom line is NFL football is almost officially back, folks. We are now only 28 days away, 4 weeks exactly, from when the Packers and Bears opened the 2019 NFL season officially, much like last year in what was one of the best games of last season, when the Packers came back from a 17-point deficit and went on to win in what was a thrilling fourth quarter. And there are quite some big stories leading up to all of these games tonight. And, of course, perhaps, at least in the New York area, none bigger than the Jets and the Giants. A lot of people are expecting to see Daniel Jones, the Giants' first-round quarterback pick, make his unofficial NFL debut. Eli Manning may or may not play tonight. We shall see. And with the Giants, of course, they have their just gluttony of embarrassments, from Golden Tate's pending suspension to Sterling Shepard's injury, among others. And on the New York Jets side of things, of course, we all know the hype leading up to this season. The running back Le'Veon Bell will not play tonight, and it has already been said that he will not play at all this preseason. And a very wise move, given the recent history of injuries with the Jets and Giants in preseason games. And the other games tonight include, as aforementioned, the Packers and Texans. We have the Colts and Bills, the Jaguars and Ravens, the Redskins and the Browns, the Patriots and the Lions, the Falcons and Dolphins, the Titans and Eagles, the Panthers and Bears, the LA Chargers against the Arizona Cardinals, and the Broncos and the Seahawks at 10 o'clock tonight. And it was definitely not a quiet day for the NFL, as is usually the case, but quite a couple big things happened today. So first and foremost, with Duke Johnson of the formerly of the Cleveland Browns, he was traded today, and he had expressed his desire to find a new team, especially with the acquisition of Kareem Hunt for the Browns and with the emergence of Nick Chubb last year as a Rookie of the Year candidate last year, and who could very quickly become similar to the likes of Saquon Barkley or Le'Veon Bell or David Johnson, being talented and versatile in multiple facets of the game. But he was traded today to the Houston Texans for an undisclosed draft pick next year, and the competition for the draft pick will begin as a fourth rounder, but conditionally it could become a third round pick based on how yet-to-be-revealed circumstances will dictate. And that'll give the Texans a nice 1-2 punch in the backfield with Mr. Johnson and Lamar Miller as well. And Nick Bosa, the first-round defensive end pick for the 49ers, he will miss the entire preseason with what was deemed a significant ankle sprain, but it is not believed that he will miss any of the regular season, which is good news for the 49ers, as they've had their recent history of injuries as well. Last year, Jerick McKinnon tore his ACL in training camp, missed the entire year. But with week one of the preseason, it's one of my favorite weeks in the entire season, because it is the week one of the preseason and week one of the regular season, because they are the weeks of blatant and often simply outrageous and unfounded overreactions. I mean, if Daniel Jones throws 6 touchdowns tonight, Giants fans will think he's the next Phil Simms. Or obviously Eli Manning. Granted, Phil Simms was a little more efficient than Eli in certain seasons. But we'll see a lot of rookie debuts tonight as well, of course. I mean, look, at most, the Stars will play one series tonight, if that. And really, we won't see any of the well-known NFL stars until the quote-unquote dress rehearsal for Week 3 of the preseason. But here's what I'm going to say to every NFL fan out there tonight. Take everything with a grain of salt. No matter what kind of unconventional moments happen tonight, it's just week 1 of the preseason. And there's been a lot of talk lately about shortening the preseason to 2 or 3 games. And Dave Rothenberg made a great point of this earlier on his show on ESPN Radio this morning. Give him a listen. Strongly recommend him. And that is, obviously, that means loss of revenue for owners. The owners will only allow the preseason to be truncated if the regular season is expanded to 18, 19, or even 20 games. And the NFLPA would never allow that to happen. And so as long as the regular season remains strictly at 16 games, then the preseason will remain strictly at 4 games. So it's damned if you do and damned if you don't for the NFLPA and the players against the owners. So for any of you who want preseason games to be reduced to 2, it's not going to happen. It could happen with the pending CBA talks. We'll have to see. But do I think it will? No, of course not. And it won't happen anytime in the near future, I am certain. And we have some other storylines that have been updated as well, with Cam Newton, quarterback of the Carolina Panthers, of course. Ron Rivera has been very conservative with him all throughout training camp, and as most of you know, if not all of you, Cam Newton did have shoulder surgery during the offseason, and his recovery has been stagnant, to say the least. But the Panthers are playing it safe, and Cam Newton will probably not even play a preseason game. We will have to see. And Newton did come out and say that for much of the second half of the 2018 season last year was when his shoulder injury originally took place, and he played through a lot of pain during a 4 or 5 week stretch, and often during practices he would not throw the football at all. And Cam Newton is entering his 9th season, and I think he's got more to prove than most players this year. And the Panthers are now 4 years removed from when they went to the Super Bowl. They finished a franchise best 15-1, only to get shut down by the Broncos and Von Miller in Super Bowl 50. But of course, when you have the Saints, who as of now are the current favorite in the NFC to win the Super Bowl, and overall they are behind only the Kansas City Chiefs and the New England Patriots to win it all, according to Oddshark.com. And it's also been noted that Cam Newton has taken off from team drills in order to facilitate his shoulder recovery, but we'll see where he is by week 1. I mean, otherwise, Kyle Allen could be carrying quite a bit of the load and probably just be doing a whole lot of checking down to Christian McCaffrey, and that's certainly not what the Panthers would want for their quarterback. And of course, the other big main story all throughout NFL training camps is the whole Antonio Brown fiasco, where reportedly he wore the wrong footwear when he was undergoing cryogenic treatments during the offseason. And as a result, Antonio Brown's feet have been frostbitten, and it's pretty severe. And the guy can't even put on cleats without feeling pain right now, pretty much. And he can't run, can't really participate in any team drills. And hopefully he's able to partake in practices soon, because he needs to gel with Derek Carr. And Antonio Brown has a history, of course, of feuding with teammates. I mean, look no further than his feud with Ben Roethlisberger back in Pittsburgh. But the Raiders invested a lot in Antonio Brown. They dealt multiple draft picks for him, when they made the trade with the Steelers months ago, and then handed him a $50 million contract. And, of course, everyone thought that him and Tyrell Williams would be perhaps the best receiving tandem in football for the next several seasons. And hopefully it will be that way for the Oakland Raiders. And look, this is the bottom line for the Oakland Raiders. This is a football team that has been to the playoffs once since they got annihilated by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in Super Bowl 37 back in 2002. And they have not won a playoff game in the same span of time, obviously. And John Gruden has a lot to prove, okay? John Gruden is still stuck in 2008, which prior to last season was his last year coaching in the NFL. John Gruden can relive the glory days all he wants in the early 2000s with the Raiders when he had Rich Gannon and Tim Brown, and then Jerry Rice came along, and there was Charlie Garner, and who knows? Back in 2000, the Raiders did get to the AFC Championship game where they got shut out by the Ravens, and then Tony Siraguchi landed that dirty hit on Rich Gannon, knocked Rich Gannon out of the game. And then obviously in 2001, you have the Tuck Rule game. So maybe John Gruden could have already won multiple Super Bowls with the Raiders years ago. But that's in the far past. And unfortunately, it seems that's where John Gruden is still stuck. And Antonio Brown is essentially a microcosm of all the issues that the Oakland Raiders have gone through. But the one thing that isn't an issue is John Gruden on Hard Knocks on HBO for the Oakland Raiders. Folks, please give it a listen, because anything that comes out of John Gruden's mouth when he's mic'd up is pure gold. In fact, look up John Gruden Nightmare on YouTube, and I guarantee that you will love it. But those are the main storylines across NFL training camps for now. And of course, there are obviously more preseason games throughout this weekend as well, of course. Tomorrow night, we've got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers going against the transitional Pittsburgh Steelers without Le'Veon Bell and without the aforementioned Antonio Brown. Buccaneers have a new coach in Bruce Arians, and I think his version of the Air Choreo will mesh greatly with Jameis Winston and O.J. Howard and Cameron Brate and Mike Evans. But, Jameis Winston will probably not even play it down over the first 2 preseason games. And then tomorrow night at 8 o'clock, we have the Vikings and Saints in, if you want to call it, a rematch of the 2017 NFC divisional game. If you even want to call it a rematch. None of the players who played in that game are probably even going to play to begin with. And then Saturday night, we've got the Chiefs and Bengals, the LA Rams going against the aforementioned Oakland Raiders. And then the last preseason game for this week is the Dallas Cowboys against the San Francisco 49ers. And speaking of the Dallas Cowboys, it's been one of their more tumultuous off seasons to this point. And, in fact, with breaking news, Robert Quinn has just been suspended for 2 games for violating the league policy on performance-enhancing substances. And if that's already not embarrassing enough for the Cowboys, of course, there's the whole Ezekiel Elliott situation, too. Ezekiel Elliott has been holding out of training camp now, and he wants a record-setting contract for running backs. And he wants money that's in line with Todd Gurley, with Le'Veon Bell, and with David Johnson. And in terms of average annual value, Todd Gurley is the highest paid running back in football at $14 million a year. Le'Veon Bell's number 2 at $13.1 million per year, and David Johnson of the Arizona Cardinals is number 3 at $13 million. And now it has been publicly revealed that the Cowboys, Jerry Jones, have made an offer that would put the Cowboys' newest incarnation of their offensive trio, quarterback Dak Prescott, Ezekiel Elliott, and wide receiver Amari Cooper, who was probably the primary reason the Cowboys got to the playoffs last year. But the Cowboys have made an offer to all 3 of them that reportedly puts all of them within the top 5 highest paid at their respective positions throughout the league. and the Cowboys would be wise to retain all three of them.